Your demons come to light, and your mind is not your own. Lonely is the night when there's no one left to call. You feel the time is right, say the writing's on the wall. Yeah.
No, we can ditch that. Okay. Yeah, maybe we could stretch the Lost in Space just a little bit.
We can try that.
Yeah, because the end part, the music keeps going and they have the character pull across the screen. It's pretty cool.
Okay, here it goes.
Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Put on the brakes. Put on the brakes. Welcome, welcome, boys and girls, children of all ages, hoofties, pufties, bung-eyed heifers, right and left-wing wackos, woodchucks and chuckettes, kings and queens of the Northeast Kingdom. And little dogs too, to another edition of It's News to Us. Okay, all right, little dog. Now, don't you dare hide under the table. Here, go do something camera-worthy. Here you go, go on, Sneezy. Act like a dog. Okay, you are watching. Where are we here? You're watching, thanks Philo, you're watching It's News to Us. We're Newport's oldest TV news now. I'm a little loud. We're been here for, 11 years. It'll be like 12 in September. Newport's oldest TV news, which is new. New brown cows, locals say. We got adult themes and adult language. We're just required to say that. It's not really true. And if you haven't forgotten, we're a geriocracy. We're run by Dementia Joe Biden. That's right. He's shovel ready. He's in the White House. And he's old, he's drunk, and he's angry. But where are the Bronze Age invisible sky gods? Gonna beat you and forgive you? Yeah, you know that drill. Just read the old testicle sometimes. And defund the police? No. They're not paid enough. They have to deal with the friggin' rubbish of society, the drunks, the punks, the wife beaters, the husband beaters. And and forget the PC stuff, because my name is, it's pronounced Steve, and my pronouns are Z and Jim. And I'm also a birthing person. I can chest feed too. Whee! And when you hear this stuff, just laugh at them, okay? Just look right in their faces and laugh at them and say, what in the hell are you doing? And here's our new face mask too. Well, they're not so new. They're over a year old now. But, boy, oh boy, have we got some news for you this week. The biggest thing, though, one of the biggest things, is this girl from the New York Times, a black girl, or biracial or whatever. She's not really black, but she's dark and she's got the hair. And she's a managing editor or an editorial editor or something from the New York Times. And she kept saying she couldn't pronounce expletives, Philo. Yeah, she kept calling them explicatives.
Oh, here, my mic's back on. I had to take a call. Go ahead.
She called them explicatives. And she said that she went out to Long Island, I guess, over the weekend, and she saw trucks with U.S. flags on them, Philo.
Well, and I would hope so. What other flag would she want to see?
She found it very disturbing. And she called for separating Americanness from American whiteness.
You know, I heard something about that, and I don't get it. I don't understand.
You know, the last thing we need is people bitching, okay? If you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem, all right?
Oh, definitely.
If you're bitching and bitching, I don't care what color you are. If all you got to do is bitch, then screw it, all right? We don't want to hear from you. I don't care. New York Times columnist Mara Gay said Tuesdays on Morning Joe that they got a viewership of what, maybe 900 people?
This show's horrible.
I think we got more people watching It's News to Us than Morning Joe. That she saw and noticed trucks with American flags and was disturbed. And then she was talking about the riot on January 6th. Riot, my God, the disturbance. She said She saw trucks with anti-President Joe Biden messages with the explicatives and Trump flags, and advised that the message she got from the American flag was, "This is my country. This is not your country." It's like, what? That's the first thing that comes to mind when I see a flag. It's really concerning to me that the Democrats haven't just gone ahead at this point and said, we're doing this on our own in terms of getting a commission together to explain to American people how we allowed an insurrection to take place at the Capitol. I think you really need to move forward swiftly. The reality is here that we have a large percentage of the American population. I don't know how big it is. Oh, it's big, honey. We're talking 75 million voters last time around. And you got to factor in that only a third to 2/3 of the population votes at any given time, and Biden is supposedly only won by 1 million votes. So we're talking 75 million. That's how big we are, honey. We allowed it to take place. I think it really needs to move forward. Right. I don't know how big it is, but we have tens of millions of Trump voters who continue to believe that their rights as citizens are under threat by simple virtue of having to share democracy with others. I think as long as we see Americanness as the same as one with whiteness, this is going to continue. We have to figure out how to get every American in a place at the table in this democracy, but how to separate Americanness, America, from whiteness. Oh my God. Really, honey?
It sounds like a Coca-Cola ads that they were running.
It sounds like a bleach commercial. Make sure you pour it in first and separate your whiteness.
Somebody on Facebook had a joke about this would be considered racist, and it was a paper towel or paper towel or toilet paper was called what was that called? White cloud.
Yeah.
And guy was laughing. He said, "I'm glad it wasn't called brown cloud."
Yeah. Well, look at this. Here we have a prime example right here of political correctness, because what used to be Plantation Mint, a brand of tea going back, at least 40, 50 years since World War II, or even earlier. I mean, mint and tea has been around since, my God, the 1700s, but they changed it from Plantation Mint to Perfectly Mint because we don't want to offend anyone. But anyways, it gets better. Until we can confront that and talk about it, it's really going to continue, she warned. I was on Long Island this weekend visiting a really dear friend, and I was really disturbed. I saw, dozens and dozens of pickup trucks with the explicatives against Joe Biden. Now, this woman is a college-educated editor at one of the biggest newspapers in the friggin' country. Well, not so much anymore, the New York Times. The Post gets more subscribers. But for the biggest newspapers, and she doesn't know the difference between expletives and explicatives. And against Joe Biden on the back of them. Well, how many years have we seen those stupid "Not My President" bumper stickers on every anti-Trump Hillary voter?
Yeah, whether it was Bush or whether it was Clinton, no matter what it was, it's the same every year.
Yeah, or Obama, "Not my president." Bush, "Not my president." The puppy was digging around the other day. I got the bedrooms open upstairs, right, with the windows open for airflow and stuff, right, Philo?
Yeah.
The puppy goes in, and I don't know where the hell she finds this stuff. That dog comes out with the weirdest crap that I didn't know existed. She came out with a bumper sticker. I should bring it in next week. That says "Impeach Clinton." It's from 1998. I didn't think it made the move up here from Pennsylvania. Trump had dozens of American flags, which is also just disturbing, because essentially the message was clear. It was, "This is my country. This is not your country. I own this." Well, honey, if you're paying taxes on it, you might say that you kind of own it.
You're a shareholder anyway.
Yeah, and for a while until you tip over. Gay continued. what's her name? Gay. Mara Gay. And so until we're ready to have this conversation, this is going to continue. What really is concerning to me as well as is it's not just Democrats in Congress. I think there's a large percentage of Americans, even some of my colleagues in journalism, who are invested in some way in pretending that this isn't the threat that it is. This is a real concern, period. Because, the Trump voters who are not going to get on board with democracy, they're a minority. You can marginalize them in the long term. But if we don't take the threat seriously, then I think we're all in really bad shape. And Mika, Balloonhead Mika saying, yeah, totally agree. Little Miss Mental Floss. Unbelievable. And so we got some other news too. Yeah, the explicatives. And you remember in 2016 when they started that stupid meme that the Russians have interfered with our election, right? Well, guess who came up with a solution to that and then tried to get a bill passed in 2016, 2018, Philo? Remember? No. Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, okay.
Tulsi Gabbard said, look, what we got to do is we got to have a paper system, a backup, like they do in Canada, okay? Everybody gets a ballot. They vote on the ballot. The ballot gets set aside. Sure, it's run through the machine to count faster, but it's set aside, and then you have a paper trail, like they do in Canada. But did they follow Tulsi's advice? She had the legislation was co-sponsored by I don't know how many people. Oh no, we'll complain about it, but we won't do anything about it. And then, oh yeah, did you see what happened to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Philo?
No, I just saw what happened to Joe Biden and Fauci.
Oh God, yeah, they got heckled. We'll get to that. But AOC comes out and she was complaining about how Trump hadn't given enough money to Puerto Rico after the hurricane. And she had pictures of her poor grandmother's ceiling falling in this horrible house that she was forced to live in, Philo, right? This is my abuela's house. This is where my abuela lives. And she could, they could have used the money from Trump from the hurricane to rebuild, Never mind that every jefe on the island down there took half the money and put them in the Swiss bank accounts, right? As usual in Latin America. Well, so somebody from, I don't know, that guy from Barstool Sports or I don't know, the other, one of those other websites or whatever, he started a bunch of philanthropic, drives to help people out and help small businesses and stuff like that, right? He got together a GoFundMe page for AOC's grandmother. It was like, help Abuela repair her home in Puerto Rico, right? You know how much they raised in like 3 or 4 days, Philo?
I bet it was a lot.
$100,000, right? So they got a hold of AOC and her grandmother and their people and said, look, we got $100,000 here to help your grandmother fix up her house and maybe some of her neighbors and other people in Puerto Rico, And guess what? They clammed up. They never took the money. They never even acknowledged that he had raised the money or anything, Philo.
Fancy that.
Yeah, fancy that. $100,000, tax-free. And they didn't want to take it. You think she might have been pulling somebody's leg? Unbelievable. And, just yesterday, day before, Nigeria banned Twitter. Twitter banned the Nigerian president because they didn't like him. Talk about Black Lives Matter not mattering, right? Well, they didn't like the president of Nigeria. Or what he was saying, because, they got a Woody for him, or whatever, or he's a dictator, or he's a president, or some stupid reason, right?
Maybe a communist.
Yeah, so Jack Dorsey, the guy who runs Twitter, a.k.a. Fred Ziffel.
Oh, I liked him.
I'm telling you, remember Arnold Ziffel, the pig from Green Acres?
Yes, I liked Arnold.
You take a picture of Arnold's father, Fred Ziffel, and Jack Dorsey and put them side by side, it's the same friggin' person, man. Minus the overalls.
As they say in Rhode Island, side by each.
Yeah. Out in the dooryard. Yeah, geez. Yeah, so they banned the president, so the president says, okay, we're gonna ban you.
That sounds reasonable, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Here you go, jerk. You wanna lose all them advertising dollars, and screw you. And speaking of Nigeria's, the latest Hunter Biden emails, I sent you a trove of that, all that Hunter Biden stuff from, we don't hear about any of it over here on his laptop. His lawyer acknowledged that it was his laptop that the crackhead left at the repair shop. So anyways, the Daily Mail in England got a copy of the hard drive, and they've been going through all these emails, and they found some emails between Hunter and his lawyer. And forgive me. Oh, forgive me, my best teacher in trade school, Carl Douglas, a black guy. Forgive me, Carl. But in the emails, there's a whole bunch of emails from Hunter to his lawyer where he keeps calling his lawyer nigga. He's saying stuff like, oh, nigga, please. And nigga, could you take care of this? And it's like, what the hell? I mean, I know the guy's on crack and all, but you gotta figure that that everything you say, everything you write on email is open record, okay? I mean, at least when you write a letter and send it through the post office, unless somebody at the other end prints it up and shows it to people, it's confidential. Nobody knows about it, okay? Same thing with a phone call, unless they're tapping your phone. Well, would they listen for words like bomb, Supreme Court, president, stuff like that? That's the echelon system's been around for 20, 30 years.
An Akbar.
Akbar, hello, hello, Akbar, hello, Akbar, hello, Akbar. But anyways, that's private. You got to figure anything you write in an email is just, it's out there, it's in the ether. So that's why I don't care. That's why I don't have a password for my computer. I just hit cancel because you know what? Screw it. It's like there's no such thing as privacy, whether it be your iPhone or whatever. And we'll get to that too. There's a FBI. It just took down a global drug dealers, money laundering, and everything else. Yeah, so Hunter Biden, you know, those emails, we don't hear about them here, but thank God for the interweb, because we can get the Daily Mail from London. And, and the Fauci stuff. I got a clip for you. I think Todd will have to pull it off my camera. He's pulling down the Troy Town meeting. I guess Ray had fun at the Troy Town meeting last night.
Oh, Troy or North Troy?
The town.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, he had some fun. I guess there were only 20, 30 people there, so Ray took the camera, and he went with my cousin Scotty, and off they went. And he really gave him hell. And guess who the moderator was, Philo?
Who's that?
Senator Bobby Starr.
Oh, okay.
I guess he had Bobby Starr twisted up like a pretzel, Philo.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time, probably.
This ought to be interesting to watch. Because I don't know if Todd's going to toss it to you to edit or whatever, but Ray had asked that did I give it to Todd right away so he could put a kick the can on thing on it and throw it up to YouTube.
Yeah, if he gives it to me, I'll edit it tomorrow morning.
Cool.
Because we don't have anybody coming in tomorrow.
Yeah, awesome. And so anyways, it's 2 hours of mayhem of Ray tearing it up. I didn't go because I had those food poisoning issues. Hopefully, knock on wood, are resolved. I had my refrigerator go south on me, and then like an idiot inside the fridge, I had stuffed clams and stuffed scallops, right? Yeah. And I cooked them thoroughly, you know, but lo and behold, man, I spent the last 4 days, it was like a 48-hour bug. I spent the last 4 days within 20 feet of a turlet.
I'm surprised that they didn't say you had COVID.
Oh, man, yeah. That's why I stayed away from the doctor. Here we are. Biden wants voting law as restrictions mount. Again with Mary Claire. Jelonic. There's no restrictions. We just want no dead people voting. Well, I mean, except for Joe Biden, he's shovel ready. But, you know, you have to scrub the dead people off the list. You have to make sure that people haven't moved out of state. And you have to allow people from opposite parties to watch the poll. You know, you got to watch. It's not the people, the voters. You don't have to watch the voters. You have to watch the people that count the votes. That's who you got to watch. Because we saw instances time after time in the last election in November where these people said, oh yeah, we're going to stop counting. It's getting pretty late. Never mind that, you know, your job as a counter is to be there until all the votes are counted. Doesn't matter until it goes till 6 a.m. in the morning. You have a couple of pots of coffee brewing. I don't care if you got to take speed or meth or whatever, but you stay up all night and count them votes. You don't say, well, it's 1 a.m., we're going to go home, and then after all the reporters and poll watchers leave, then you start dragging in boxes and counting votes again? Ain't going to happen again. And you want to vote? Maybe you should have an ID, yeah. You know, because all these states that are passing voter ID laws are giving out free IDs anyways. Oh, and here's some COVID news. Scientists say we may not need booster shots, Philo.
We do or we don't need them?
We might not. We might not need them.
Well, just before you came in, Fauci is saying that the vaccines are supposed to prevent this variant D.
Oh, God.
That's coming around, and it's like he always has a trap door, doesn't he?
That guy has got to go.
He has a trap door and an explanation for every little thing that whether it exists or not, you won't know if it actually is true or not.
Well, he can't be trusted. He can't.
No.
And
no,
that
sir.
clip I have for next week, Philo, is from Steve Hilton's show, The Next Revolution.
Yep.
It's on Sunday nights. He's an immigrant. He just got his citizenship. His parents fled Hungary, for the communist Hungary, right?
Oh.
And went to England. He grew up in England. And he came over here and worked his way up. And he just became a citizen a month ago after living here like 20 years. Anyways, Connecticut lawmakers warned for excessive drinking during the session, Philo. The speaker, Matt Ritter, warned that anyone who continues to drink alcohol excessively during the sessions could face serious consequences, including committee assignments.
You could be drunk, but not too drunk.
Yeah, exactly. The majority leader, Jason Rojas, these are all Democrats, mind you, recently admonished members of the Democratic House caucus on multiple occasions about drinking in the complex while the House was in session. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah, you can drink, but just don't get cocked. Oh, and the hackers that took down the JBS meat operation came from a ransomware gang called REvil, R-Evil, which is believed to operate in Russia. According to a person familiar with the situation, not authorized to discuss it. Again, with the unnamed, unverified sources, Philo.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Yeah, believed to operate in Russia. Now, we told you over and over again that a good hacker can mask their location easily. And I remember years ago, 2007 or whatever, I interviewed writer and environmental activist. Some would call him a pro-environmental terrorist, Eric Jensen. I drove down south to Rowe, Mass, and interviewed him down there. And in one of his books, he was hanging around with a bunch of hacker kids. Derek's about my age. He's younger than me. He's about in his 50s, I think, now. And he had asked a bunch of hacker kids how many people it would take to like shut down everything, power grids, shipping ports of entry, all this stuff, right? How many people would it take to shut down the whole internet, the planet, everything, all these businesses? And the kids looked at each other and started laughing, and they said, fewer than Jesus had disciples. So less than a dozen good hackers could shut down the whole planet if they wanted to. Oh, and here we are again with Mary Claire. Mary Claire Jelinek. This is Jelinek, Kalanick. This is from. This is an editorial masquerading as straight news from today's paper about the January 6th riot. Oh, please. Oh, and wait till you hear this FBI story. This is great. And of course, it shows the Chewbacca guy with the horns. I'll have to put on my helmet for that one, because you never know when the meteor storms start coming. You got to put on your helmet.
You better get some tin foil too.
Yeah. Make sure your helmet is lined with tin foil to keep the voices out. A Senate investigation of the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol found a broad intelligence breakdown across multiple agencies, along with widespread law enforcement and military failures that led to the violent attack. There were clear warnings and tips that supporters of President Trump, including right-wing extremist groups, were planning to storm the Capitol with weapons. Now, never mind that not one weapon was found, no guns, no knives, nothing like that. Some fool had bear spray or something, and the other people were grabbing flagpoles and using them like spears and battering rams. But, we don't know who these people are because they don't list the people who were arrested and tell us if they belong to the left wing or the right wing. The left-wing guys like that John Sullivan, who sold his video to CNN and those guys, and then had the federal government take his money back, that guy was clearly left-wing. He had been busted for rioting at BLM riots a year ago in Utah. He said, we don't know, but oh yeah, they're weapons, and possibly infiltrate the tunnel system. And so anyways, it was a Senate investigation. Bipartisan, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Senate Majority Chuck Schumer. This report is important in the fact it allows us to make some immediate improvements to the security in the Capitol, said Senator Gary Peters, chairman of the Fosterland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, which conducted the probe with the Senate Rules Committee. But it doesn't answer some of the biggest questions, quite frankly, we need to face as a country and a democracy. Little Chucky Schumer, the guy with the yarmulke bald spot, said Tuesday the findings show even a greater need for a bipartisan commission to root out the causes of the attack, referring to Trump's unfounded claims about the election. They're not unfounded. Mary Claire, you might have buried them, but I think they're still on YouTube. All these states that had hearings, because I sat down and I watched them, man. I watched the hearings from the State House in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and the State House in Michigan, and the State House in Arizona and New Mexico. And these people had valid concerns and videotape of the shenanigans that were going on. And we're not going to allow drop boxes anymore and ballot harvesting. Yet Phil Scott just signed a bill that's going to allow it up here, Philo.
I think he wants to let people that aren't even citizens vote.
No, he canceled that, thank God. Those are those Fruit Loops over in Winooski.
Oh boy, don't even get me started on that, on Chittenden County.
Oh God, they're crazy
you'll
over
get me
there.
on my soapbox and I'll get mad.
They're crazy over there.
Snowflakes.
As the big lie continues to spread, as faith in our election continues to decline, well, whose fault is that? It's crucial that we establish a trusted, independent record of what transpired. No, it's crucial that we establish a backup paper ballot voting system so we can't be screwed with. You fool. Schumer knows this. But Mitch McToydle, who led the blockade against such a commission, said he's confident that the ongoing reviews might be sufficient. They passed legislation, the House did, the panel investigated. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi told her the Senate fails to launch its own study. Then they go, oh, geez, here we are. Now, here's the report. The Senate report recounts how the National Guard was delayed for hours on January 6th as officials. You got to read the article from the back to the front. You always have to. Most people get bored, read the headlines, and then chuck it, right? Go to the next page.
Oh, you mean like a guy who does editorials in the Newport Daily?
Yeah, really.
Boring.
You got to keep them brief, and you got to be salient, and you got to, anyways. But these you have to read from the back to the front.
Well, you know how these lawyers are.
Yeah, really. They were delayed for hours as officials in multiple agencies took bureaucratic steps to release the troops. It details hours of calls between officials in the Capitol and the Pentagon, and his then chief, Stephen's son, desperately begged for help. It finds that the Pentagon spent hours mission planning and seeking multiple layers of approvals as the Capitol Police were being overwhelmed and brutally beaten. I don't know if they were brutally beaten. Some of them got beaten because they started lobbing tear gas. Again, we got 14,000 hours of video. Cut it loose. Let's see what happened. They got the video. Show it to us. But they won't. It also says the Defense Department's hesitant response was influenced by criticism of its heavy-handed response to protests in the summer of 2020 after George Floyd. This or as Nancy Pelosi called him, George Kirby. The senators are heavily critical of the Capitol Police Board, a 3-member panel made up of the heads of security for the House and Senate and the architect of the Capitol. The board now is required to approve requests by the police chief, even in urgent situations. The report recommends its members review the policies and procedures after they found that the 3 board members did not understand their own authority and could not detail the statutory requirements for requesting guard assistance. Oh, so it's not the fault of the people or the police. These boneheads didn't know their own authority, and the people were in the jerk-offs at the Pentagon were jerking off for hours.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of jerks.
It sounds like a circle jerk.
That was a punk band, you know.
Oh, good, great.
You remember them?
No.
I don't think I ever heard anything by them, but I know that there was a punk band called that once.
Great name.
Back in the late 70s, early 80s, something like that.
2 of the 3 board members, the House and Senate sergeant-at-arms, were pushed out in the days after the attack. The chief was resigned under pressure. The report recommends a consolidated intel unit within the Capitol Police after widespread failures of multiple agencies that did not predict the attack, even though the insurrectionists were planning it openly on the interweb. Police intel unit knew about social media posts calling for violence at the Capitol, including a plot to breach the Capitol and sharing maps of the underground tunnel systems and other specific threats. But the agents did not properly inform leaders of everything they had found. Oh, we see this over and over and over again with the FBI. And speaking of which, the FBI, they're dicking around with these with this stuff. Here we are, and dicking around with the stuff overseas, European gangs and transnational gangs. But, when it comes to American terrorists like that shooter down in Florida, the high school shooter and stuff like that,
Yeah.
they just drop the ball completely. FBI-run network leads to a major bust. What happens was the FBI busted this criminal group, Philo, and they all had their own cell phones where they would text each other, and it was all encrypted, right?
Yep.
So get this. What they did was at Operation Trojan Shield, they, let's see, in 2018, they took down a company called Phantom Secure that provided customized end-to-end encrypted devices to criminals. Unlike typical cell phones, these devices don't make phone calls or browse the net, but allow for secure messaging. An outgrowth of the operation, the FBI recruited a collaborator who was developing a next-gen secure platform for the criminal underworld called ANOM. So what they did was they took over the company and they started, along with they grabbed the founder, web designer, they got him to start a new company, and they got all the criminals were so proud of this encryption data. So this was in 2018, we're talking 3 years ago. So they've been watching these jokers for 3 years. And the collaborator engineered the system to give the FBI access to any messages being sent. It didn't take off immediately, but once the other secure platforms used by the gangs use the drug trafficking and hits on people and money laundering were taken down by police called EncroChat and Sky ECC. The gangs were in the market for a new platform, and the FBI's was ready. So over the past 18 months, they provided phones via unsuspecting middlemen to more than 300 gangs in more than 100 countries. Isn't that the job? They worked with the DEA on this one, but isn't that the DEA's job, Philo?
Could be.
I thought the FBI was strictly domestic.
It's hard to say. I'm just impressed with the people they did finally bust after all this time. But did you notice something with all the people they busted all around the world? They didn't get anything with human trafficking, did they?
No, that seems to be it's still, and I'll get to that thing on the border too. On the border, so far, they've got over 95 sex offenders, Philo.
Coming down from Canada?
Yeah, from Canada, yeah. No, the other border.
Oh, from down there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing surprises me with Canada anymore. They've turned into a bunch of wimps.
These are Mexicans, Guatemalans, El Salvadorans, and Hondurans. They got over 95 convicted. These are known sex offenders, 813 convicted criminals from over 70 countries. Yet Biden just said, "Come on in, man. Come on in." But anyways, back to the FBI bust. They led to raids in 16 nations. 800 suspects were arrested and 32 tons of drugs. 32 tons, including coke, weed, methamphetamines were seized, along with 250 guns, 55 luxury cars, and more than 148 million in cash and cryptocurrency.
And the only thing that they were interested in was the fancy cars.
Yeah. I want a Ferrari.
Hey, that's what I'd take. To hell with the drugs, I'll take the fancy cars.
I want the McLaren. No, I want the Maserati.
Hey, I saw a couple of those down in Florida. Boy, those are nice.
Oh, yeah, man. So intel gathered and analyzed enabled us to prevent murders, led to seizure of drugs and weapons. It helped prevent a number of crimes, said Calvin Shivers, Assistant Director of the FBI Criminal Investigation Division, CID, told a news conference in the Netherlands. The operation led by the FBI with the involvement of the DEA, the European Union police called Europol. I guess they got rid of Interpol. Now they call it Europol, Philo.
Wow.
And law enforcement agencies in several countries dealt an unprecedented blow to criminal networks, said Dutch National Police Chief Constable Janine Vandenberg. Australian Federal Police Commander Jennifer Hurst called it a watershed moment for global law enforcement. The Anom app became popular in criminal circles as users told one another it was a safe platform. All the time, the cops were looking over their shoulders as they discussed death hits, drug shipments, and other crimes. There was a void that was created by the lack of these encrypted platforms, Shivers said. So that created an opportunity for collaboration with our international partners, not only to develop this tool, but to develop the process of gathering the intel and disseminating it. Oh, and the junta in Myanmar, which is the old Burma, is going to present its case against Aung San Suu Kyi in court Monday. Yeah, it's okay. The army just takes over, and that's okay. 65 people dead in a Pakistani train wreck, Philo. And speaking of train wrecks, our Vice Presidente, Kamala Harris, was heckled in Guatemala. And they even had signs that said Trump won and Kamala go home, man. We haven't seen a warm welcome like this in Latin America for vice president since Richard Nixon went down there in '58, right?
Well, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, they threw rocks at him.
We knew, we know, just like when George W. was president, we know who was really running the country, and that was Cheney.
Yeah,
now,
well,
with our current president, we know who's really running the country, and it's not Biden.
And it's not Harris either.
Huh.
She's just a laughing gas bag. I mean, she is so vapid. Nobody wanted her for when she was running. She dropped out so early, man. People wondered where she went. She's so plastic, man. I mean, she's so plastic. She makes like Ronald McDonald look real.
Well, I'm wondering who's run the country then.
Well, you know, the machine as usual.
Well, yeah. But usually there's somebody like Cheney would step up, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's a self-licking ice cream cone at this point, Philo.
Well, I want to get one of those then.
Yeah. It just keeps on keeping on, man. And people like Presidente Joe's kid, Hunter, they never get busted. Yet Rudy Giuliani gets raided, even though he had lawyer-client privilege. And Roger Stone has 21 FBI agents with CNN cameras bust his home for lying to Congress. He gets busted at 5 a.m., right? They kick his doors in. And he gets taken down, thrown in jail. Yet Fauci has lied to Congress on multiple occasions, and it doesn't matter. Fauci can lie over and over again because, he's okay.
I think Rand Paul has got his number.
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before Fauci decides to retire, to spend more time with his family.
I wish he would. He's been around too long. There's such a thing as being in a job too long.
Yeah.
There was a woman, I won't mention her name, but she was the head of Project Crash here in this area.
Yeah.
She spent way too many years in that position, and she became an incredibly bitter old woman.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was to the point where she was bitter at everybody and everything.
And they guard their turf.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Uh-oh, they found me.
Yeah.
Anyways, a train crash in Pakistan. There was 1,100 people on both trains. They were asleep when the Milat Express, traveling between Karachi and Saratoga in Punjab province. Oh, speaking of which, I'm reading Winston Churchill's early biography, right, Philo?
Yeah.
And he was in India. He went over there. He went to Sandhurst, the military academy, right? And he managed to pass barely. And then he knew his dad was a member of parliament, so they knew he had friends in high places. So he got to go when the war broke out in 1890 something, 98 or whatever, in the tribal regions of India, which is now Pakistan, because India and Pakistan split up in 48 or something, 49, and. But back then it was all India, and he went over there, and he was the stuff that he talks about. It's just like today, where they respect nothing but power. The tribes always have vendettas against each other. They have a woody for another tribe or family that goes back generations. It's mind-boggling. But the descriptions of the country and the people, it's just insane. It's a great book. I got it. You know who I got it from? Sheriff Tom, Philo.
Wow.
Sheriff Tom is kind enough to save me all these hardcover books about history and politics. So I went over there last week, and I've done favors for him. He does favors for me, like saving these books. And I went over there, and I came back with a box full of great books, and this Churchill biography was one of them. Anyways, 1,100 people on both trains. One of them derailed and many of the cars overturned. As the passengers scrambled to get out, another passenger train, the Sir Syed Express, crashed into the derailed coaches. Rescue work continued throughout the day Monday. Bodies of passengers were taken to their hometowns. Shafiq Ahmed Mahisar, the commissioner, said all bodies have been retrieved. Beside the 65 dead, more than 100 were injured. Army engineers and soldiers dispatched from a nearby mill base assisted in the rescue and heavy machinery hours later to cut open train cars. What, they said it was dilapidated. I did somewhere in here. It was talking about the trains being dilapidated. A horrific crash of two trains, crumpled cars. Yeah, the crash took place on a dilapidated railway track in Gotki, a district in Sindh province, Pakistan, when an express train barreled into another that had derailed minutes earlier, before dawn. Yeah, riding on that New Delhi freight train.
You know what happened if you had a sandwich shop in India?
Depends on if you serve meat or not.
It would be called a New Delhi Deli.
Yeah. Yeah, to get you into a pickle there. Oh, here we are. Harris begins meeting abroad. Oh, yeah. What she's saying is, all we have to do is give these people billions of dollars. Now, mind you, what Trump said, Trump just did the opposite. Trump said, how much do we give these people? And they're all like, oh, I don't know, all 3-4 countries, $500 million a year, 500 million, right, Philo?
Yeah.
So Trump called them up and said, hey, look, okay, you know that money we're giving you? You're not getting it, okay? You're not getting any more money unless you stop your people from coming through Mexico and coming up here. And the same with the Mexicans, all right? You want me to get rid of some of these tariffs and stuff like that? Then you put your soldiers on the border and you stop these people from A, coming into Mexico down south, and B, stopping them from coming across the border up north. And you know what, Philo? It worked, okay? And then he instituted the Remain in Mexico program, where you have to stay there while you wait for asylum, while your asylum claim. And bang, it stopped, went down to a trickle, that and building the wall, which is all electronic and stuff like that, so they can tell. I didn't do it. Ooh, that's a big one, Philo. Todd, grab a camera and go get him. Follow him. Maybe we need a scanner. Guatemala City. VP Harris on Monday emphasized the need to restore hope for residents of struggling Central American nations to help address the increase in migration as she faced her first major test of her diplomatic skills. Her comments came at the start of the meeting with Guatemalan Presidente Alejandro Giammattei. He's Italian, Philo.
No kidding. Might have pizza. Are you going to give us pizza?
Son of a biscuit, man. The president of Guatemalan's an Italian. She plans to address everything from vaccine sharing to corruption in the region. Oh, so with all this corruption, what we should do is give them more money in foreign aid so that all these corrupt leaders can put it in Swiss bank accounts before they bail out when the army's on their tail.
Well, you know what happened with when Reagan was president. He sent all that money to develop industry down in Mexico. And what did they do? They built stuff and they paid their workers nothing anyway.
Yeah.
And that worked out real good, didn't it?
And you know, when Trump redid NAFTA, that was one of the things he got through in the new what was it called, the Mexican Canadian Free Trade Agreement or whatever. When he ditched NAFTA and got the new agreement, he made him put in a clause that that all these maquiladoras and factories allow unions and pay at least a minimum wage of, like, I don't know, $10 an hour, Philo.
That would be a luxury down in Mexico.
Oh, that's big money. Yeah. You know, did we hear about that? In 4 years, all we heard was the Russians and the Ukrainians, and we never heard squat. It's mind-boggling, man. I've never seen anything like it. Let's see.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Monica Lewinsky.
Oh, yeah.
All those millions spent on that stupid farce.
The Republicans, those idiots, shot themselves in the foot.
Yep, and now the Democrats are going to do the same thing. So, hey, we're all even.
Yeah, they're going down, man. They're circling the bowl as we speak. Hope does not exist by itself. It must be coupled with relationships and trust. It must be coupled with tangible outcomes in terms of what we do as leaders to convince people that there's a reason to be hopeful about the future and the future of their children. You know, it could be hopeful. Give them birth control. Every friggin' family's got like 12 kids, honey.
That's because they're Catholic.
Oh, yeah. Call the Pope. Get the Pope on line 1. Harris also said that she chose Guatemala and Mexico for for her first trip was a reflection of the priority that President Biden placed on the region. She said the two nations are interconnected and interdependent, and it's all our collective interest that we work together. Harris is visiting Guatemala and Mexico as part of her role in dealing diplomatically with the irregular migration to the U.S. Irregular? Are you kidding me? It's been regular and it's been steady. We're talking, over 1 million, 2 million people so far, and those are only the ones that we know of. Because while the Border Patrol is dealing with some kids they toss over a wall or leave under a tree in the desert, or in that, like on an irrigation canal on some farm in Texas, while the Border Patrol are dealing with them, you got all these friggin' wetbacks running pack mules of fentanyl across the border and bringing in these other sex offenders, and they even brought in, they just resettled a bunch of, what are they? They're from not Ethiopia, but not the Congo, some African country. They just resettled a whole bunch of them in Lewiston, Maine, Philo. How the hell did they get from Africa to the Mexican border?
I think probably a good set of swim flippers.
Yeah, a really long canoe.
And some shark repellent.
Yeah, it's insane. Oh, and get this, you're gonna love this. People are having re-entry anxiety after the lockdowns, Philo. Re-entry anxiety.
You know, I see that all the time, and it's people in their cars still alone wearing masks, people out in the middle of the woods wearing masks, in isolated areas wearing masks.
While protective measures will no longer be required, state officials will still recommend them for an unspecified period. Either way, Burns said, people will need time to transition to life that will be the least restrictive since last March, a year ago. Scott loosened the mask guidelines, but whole towns and cities decided to keep their mandates until a higher number were vaccinated. Oh, get this. South Burlington voted to rescind the mask mandate. Burlington Mayor Myra Weinberger, a.k.a. Groucho Marx, Weinberger announced this month that he plans to lift the city's emergency order on June 15th. Well, what about the emergency order where he declared racism to be a public health emergency in Burlington, Philo?
Boy, he's got them all, doesn't he?
Is that one over? Or is racism...
The last time I went to Burlington, I was told that Burlington has not rescinded the mask mandate.
Oh, they just did, like it's in yesterday or day before.
Well, I don't care because the places that hassled me are not getting my business.
Screw them.
They're not getting anything from me.
A number of workers of those stores fell into the final vax range and achieved status and blah-de-blah-de-da. We believe in the efficacy of the vaccines and are so thankful that all have been vaccinated, Commandeer wrote, this a company. But our at-risk team cannot be responsible for determining the vaccine status or honesty at our doorway. For now, wearing a mask when entering any public-facing business with employees is a sign of respect for those workers and their families. Attempts to reach Commandeer were not immediately successful. The Burlington Police Department are allowing their officers to go maskless inside the department, yet visitors must still wear a mask. And this is incredible.
Yeah, what did he say? Phil Scott said when we reach 80% vaccinated, well, he's at 79.2, but he's going to keep this thing going until the 4th of July.
Well, like we showed you in that clip last week, well, maybe Philo will run it this week too.
I'll leave it in there. That's fine with me.
Yeah, like.
I also have a question about the emergency order. You mentioned, putting out a memo on what to do if and when the emergency order gets lifted. But have you, Governor Scott, arrived at a decision for certain over whether you will be rescinding the state of emergency when COVID restrictions are lifted? I wasn't entirely clear on that from the last time somebody asked.
That's for the governor, I think. Yeah. Aaron, I think I've said before, our intent is to end the state of emergency just as quick as possible, but there are some other factors, mostly financial, FEMA funding and so forth, that is tied to the state of emergency. We may have to put some other provisions in place in order to make sure that we can continue to test, for instance, and get paid for it, and administer vaccines and so forth and get paid for it. So those are the types of things that we're trying to work our way through in terms of the state of emergency. We want to end it just as quick as we possibly can, but we have to unwind it. So we'll lift all the restrictions that are in place when we hit 80%. But again, there may be threads of funding opportunities for us to make sure that we take advantage of over the last couple of weeks or something of that nature. So it won't end at the same time, but it will be shortly after.
So it's all about the money,
Okay,
you lying
one thing that
sack of...
comes to mind with the state of emergency is the eviction moratorium. Have you considered how you're going to kind of, preserve that aspect of it, or sunset it, or whether it'll end entirely?
No, you're going to have to pay your rent, you deadbeats.
I believe, and I'll have to check to make sure that I'm correct on this, but I believe that the legislature tied this to the state of emergency so that 30 days after the state of emergency is lifted, that the eviction moratorium will end in its present form.
Pass the buck to the legislature. Like we show you on the clip, he admits that leaving the emergency order is related to money. If he cancels his emergency order, which expires on the 15th, I think, then he loses out on federal money, and he wants that federal ching.
He kept saying, he was really strange the way he said that.
Threads.
He said, we have to have it for vaccines and for screenings and for this and this and this and this. It's like, oh, come on here.
Yeah, here we are. How to cope with re-entry anxiety.
Wow.
Transitions are hard. Oh, who wrote this? Who the hell wrote this? Elizabeth Murray. I should have known. Hey, Liz, get with the program. Transitions are hard, even when people are returning to some degree of normal. And many people are feeling anxious or overwhelmed by the idea of re-engaging with people and re-emerging from the pandemic, psychologist Burns said. This feeling has been termed re-entry anxiety. That's because you're talking to a psychologist. They're not even a psychiatrist. At least a psychiatrist is a real friggin' doctor, honey. These people are just like, what, master's degrees, PhDs maybe?
Yeah, masters at least, yeah.
Yeah, Burns said people's anxiety seems to mainly come from two places. What the hell? Of course, it's right on the fold. Seems to come from two places. Fear that they will develop COVID if they stop using certain protections, and uncertainty around being social with members of the public again. It's also more easily tiring to socialize now because people's stamina eroded during the pandemic. My God, it's a nation of pussies over there.
Oh, by the way, last but not least.
Oh my God, the number of people still Levine said it's okay. Of course he did. Dr. Rubberface Comb-Over.
Yeah, last but not least, Steve.
Okay, last but not least, we got more stuff from today's paper. Law firm used by Quiros settles with J. Peak. They settled for $32 million, Philo. Okay, very quickly. They settled for $32 million, and the ski area, the receiver, gets like $9 million. And okay, one more. Quiro down, Kelly down, little Billy Stinker is still going to trial, and they're gonna have somebody inform on him. One of the guys agreed to cooperate. So, unbelievable. Finally, second plea deal reached in ski resort visa case. Quiros, they had all these charges against Quiros. They kept 3, 9 were dropped. He may serve 8 years in prison. So once again, you wasted a perfectly good hour of your life watching this stupid show. So hopefully, we'll see you again next week. And until then, get down on your hands and knees in the men-only mosque, sniff the bum of the guy in front of you in the man dress, head east towards the meteorite in Mecca, and say, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Akbar.
And a happy Deus Magnus Est to one and all.